Well, we're honoring Ang Lee and our Film Gold Medal for Lifetime Achievement, and hundreds of club members and special guests are with us tonight. It's a moving night for the club.
And it's a movie night.
It's a movie night, and we get to talk about how this collaboration happens. It's not by accident. Genius is in place.
Why make movies? Of course, because they pay me. And if I didn't, somebody else would. But we really enjoy what we do. We love the movies we make. So if you've seen A Serious Man this year, or Coraline, or Nine, or Sin Nombre, we get to work with the best filmmakers from all over the world. And we have fun. We don't have to compromise. We make them for a right price. And so we have a lot of freedom.
Now, in that process of a lot of freedom, so let's use Serious Man, the Coen Brothers, because that's quite a serious movie about a serious subject, and/or I laughed a lot, but I had pre-warnings with Fargo where I was very upset, and someone said, no, there's comedic value in that. I said, yeah, well, I guess once you start to, well, how does it happen? What do you think?
Look, I mean, with the Coen Brothers, they... to me, I'm just like the guy at the studio. I'm standing by the door waiting for a tip, and they hand me A Serious Man, and I just love this film. It's one of my all-time favorite movies. And the audacity of it, the originality of it, the humor, and also the fear, everything. It just covers it all. And to me, it's everything about their career that I love. Every obsession.
Tell us about Taking Woodstock, how that project occurred.
Well, it occurred because I think it was time for Ang to really lighten up a bit. He'd done 6 tragedies in a row. And so it was really time for him to try something a little hopeful and a little, lighter. So it was a great experience for all of us.
Your husband is getting an award tonight, Ang Lee. Isn't that good news?
Very good news. So thank you very much.
Now, you must think that he deserves an award, don't you?
Yeah. If you have to give him an award, it's good.
He works very hard, right?
He does. He works very hard, and he has many very talented people willing to be his slave.
And work real hard for him.
Right, and love to be challenged. So sometimes, they spoiled him.
And then he comes home.
Yeah, then I just straighten him up, wake up.
Is this an interesting business? Did you know when you married him, was he in this business already?
No, he was about to graduate from film school, and then he was home for 6 years. So I thought for the rest of our lives we will just dream about making movies.
So his big break came when?
That was 1991. When he made the first movie, which is Pushing Hands. And
he's had this long-term relationship with Mr. Schamus and Focus, correct?
Right.
That seems to be going beautiful.
Yes. He's very lucky that throughout his life, he will always have somebody helping him.
Okay, well, usually people help people that are worth helping. Obviously, he must be.
Sure, it's a two-way situation, definitely.
Hi, I'm here with Sigourney Weaver. What an honor.
Well, thank you.
How are you?
Great to be here.
So tonight you're actually going to be a speaker we're at the director Ang Lee and producer screenwriter James Schamus received National Arts Club Gold. What's it? The Gold Medal for Honor for Film, and you're a speaker. Is that right?
Well, I'm mostly talking about Ang. I wasn't asked to talk about James, but mostly talking about my experience working with Ang.
And what experience is that?
Well, just that he's a very unusual kind of director. He's not interested in kind of going from A to Z or teaching anyone anything or showing anyone anything. He's sort of interested in finding out, as you do, what these people would really be like and what they'd really do. So he's sort of very unusual.
Do you feel you relate to that?
Completely.
I think you do. From watching you and the kind of introspection that you do in work. Mm-hmm. Tell us about something you're working on now.
Well, I just finished working with another wonderful director. He actually reminded me of Ang, Miguel Arteta, who was directing me and Ed Helms in Cedar Rapids, which is a wonderful comedy that Ed is the star of, and he's in love with his science teacher from grade school, and they're having a big affair now that he's grown up, and he wants to marry her, so she breaks it off. But it's a wonderful comedy with a great ensemble, and so I enjoyed doing that.
Good evening, everybody. It's so exciting to be in this remarkable institution. I just love the whole idea of what you do here, having all the arts, everyone in the arts come together, and particularly was interested in the fact that from its inception, women artists were always equal partners, which in 1898 must have been very, very ahead of its time. Anyway, I'm so thrilled to be here tonight to be part of honoring James Schamus and Ang Lee. I'd seen an earlier collaboration of theirs before I met them, Eat, Drink, Man, Woman. And I was actually throwing a beatnik party for my husband when he turned 40, and I remember Kevin Kline, clad in black with a black beret, talking about this thing he was thinking about doing called The Ice Storm and working with Ang Lee. And so, of course, I milked him for every detail, and then the next day I got a copy of the script. And I realized reading it that I had never read anything like it before. That it was kind of these bumper cars of generations and the sexes and life and fate all going at each other at the same time. And I couldn't really imagine how they'd pull it off, but I asked if I could meet with them, and that's how we ended up at the Carlisle Hotel one afternoon. Just as I got there, James Schamus said, "Well, my beautiful wife Nancy's having our second child, so I'll have to run." And so he dashed off, leaving two of the shyest people in our business to sit absolutely silently for about 15 minutes in front of this enormous tiered tea tray of goodies. But luckily, the combination of sugar and caffeine in any culture. And pretty soon we were chattering away about The Ice Storm. I told Ang that I felt it was a comedy. And everyone laughs when I say that, but I still think it was a comedy. In the sense that you have to have a sense of humor for it. But dark sense of humor, but I thought it was a Chekhovian comedy, and everyone's life choices were being fueled by lust and misery and boredom, and I particularly wanted to play the role of Janie, who I thought was sort of the Masha of the whole story, never happy, never at rest, and so. He agreed with me, so kind. Let me play Jamie, which was my first choice. And then very quickly, really, we started rehearsal. And rehearsal with Ang was not like rehearsal with any other director I've ever been with. We sat on these huge sort of mattresses, and we sat usually in couples because he wanted to sort of put us all in the rooms together, really like a lion tamer trying out new cats, He didn't really have any, he didn't seem to have, I'm glad that's not my son. I'm really embarrassed. He didn't do what most directors do, which is sort of push you, urge you toward sort of moments and sort of reconciliation of ideas or results. He sort of, he was as interested as we were in finding out what would really happen between these people. And that was unusual. He wasn't interested in kind of figuring out how to shoot things or anything. It was an exciting way to rehearse because he didn't really want us to come to any specific conclusions. He wanted us to just get bigger and bigger questions. So we got bigger and bigger questions as characters and as actors. And, after a couple of weeks, I really felt like he'd grown us, like E. coli in his little petri dish, and we were ready to go. So we began the shoot, and I think he begins all his shoots this way. Maybe we both do, but anyway, with a Buddhist ceremony, we stood outside near New Canaan, Connecticut, that infamous town. The snow was falling. We all had these big sticks of incense, and there was a table laid with all these sort of red and golden foods, chicken and fruit and all kinds of odd things. And then we bowed to all the four corners, and then Ang said a kind of Buddhist prayer asking, to help us make a good film. And then he yelled out, "Big luck!" And we all cheered and waved our incense, and then we had to go and sort of seal the deal by eating some of these strange red foods. I don't know what Christina ate, but I ate an orange, and I remember Kevin Kline ate, which I thought was not very Eastern of him, he ate a wrapped Easter egg in foil. That sort of worried me. I thought he might kind of screw us up. Anyway, it was there. And so then we started the shoot. And I have to say, it was, usually on a shoot, people really want it to go smoothly, and it never does. But these guys didn't care about it going smoothly at all. In fact, the more chaotic, the better. And I think James has a real philosophy, and Ang must share it, that creativity thrives in an atmosphere of chaos. And we certainly had that, because not only did we have all these actors, who many of them were in plays and coming in, jobbing in, but we also, they decided to do this movie that took place around Thanksgiving as spring was bursting out in Connecticut. And so not only did they have to wrangle all the crazy actors, but they had to wrangle the seasons, which I think takes a great deal of chutzpah. And they succeeded. I mean, probably some of you, I'm sure Annette knows, but how did they get the all the trees to look like they had ice on them? I tell you, it's nothing you would ever guess. Hair gel. And I'd love for James to tell us how he came up with that plan, but it was brilliant and it worked very well. Now, on the set, everyone was very busy, except for Ang. Ang was not one of these directors who would be on his phone talking to the studio about his next gig. Nothing like that. He wouldn't even be with his cinematographer figuring out the next shot. He'd sort of just be here in this hive of activity, looking like he sort of wandered in from the neighborhood. Everything happening around him, he always looked so beatific. He was just sort of there. And it meant, as an actor, that he was always there to talk to. And that was a wonderful thing. And again, his concept, they somehow, James and Ted Hope, who was another producer, they managed to take care of all of this real-world stuff, so that Ang could exist somehow in this other place where you could just talk to him or not talk to him even about the characters. Because somehow he's such a gifted director that all he has to do is kind of look at you and you know what he wants and what he doesn't want. This is really true, and I've honestly never worked with another director who did this. But he did actually frustrate a few actors. I won't mention any names, but I remember one of our wonderful actors who would say to Ang, "Okay, so it's a drama." Ang would go, "Yes, but funny inside." And then the actor would say, "All right, then you want comedy." And Ang would say, "Yes, but inside serious." He refused to be nailed down. In fact, he would really try to keep us in the land of gray. And actually, I loved it there, and it was perfect for the story that we were trying to tell. Because what Ang was not interested in doing, and James was not interested in doing, they were not interested in telling a story and judging what we were doing. This was not their job. Anne once explained to me that in the world, in the way things are supposed to be in the universe, the children should be like children and the adults should be like adults. But in the ice storm, the children begin to act like adults and the adults begin to act like children. And the universe will have to make an adjustment, which is what happens in our story. And yet at the same time, it's not the director or the writer or the producer pushing you toward a destination. They let you hang out and experience it, which I think is one way they're so gifted. Actually, in the script originally, you didn't see my character come home from the infamous tea party, and I felt that she should come home because I didn't want people to think, oh, she had a successful night. Because I was pretty sure it had not been a successful night. And even though I was afraid to read the book. Because when I started to read the book, all it talked about was Janie's spider veins, and I thought, enough already, I don't know. Anyway, so Anne and James devised this scene where Janie comes home from the party, and she comes downstairs and she goes toward her son's room to see if they're all right. And I remember, we didn't really know what was going to happen because it was a new scene, a very short scene. And so as I went toward the door and I reached my hand up to the doorknob, Aang stopped me. And I said, oh, no? And he said, no. And I said, oh, okay. Why? And he said, too ashamed. And I thought, oh God, he's so right. And it really told me everything about what happened to Janie. Anyway, he knew more than I did. These two guys are so gifted, and it was such a privilege to work with them. They are on the far end of the spectrum of filmmakers. They're not interested in formulas or outcomes, in moments, in what's good and what's bad. They're not interested in showing us anything. They are, or teaching us things. They're interested in finding out what happens to all of us, because we are all human beings and we're all flawed and we do what we do. And they're so courageous and humble, I think, to let the universe and chaos lead us where it's going to take us. They don't pigeonhole you as actors. They don't pigeonhole your characters. And you're so aware the whole time that, and I feel this particularly with Aang, because I was on the set more with him, but I always felt that neither James nor Aang judged any of us. And especially playing Janie, who was maybe not the best mother in the world, I've come to realize. But, I really felt that Aang was always on her side, that he always thought she was great, and that gave me the feeling that I could really share who Janie was, even if it was terrible. And that's a wonderful gift to give an actor. And I want to thank you for that. I felt so completely supported to tell all the truth, good and bad, about Janie. So, we're so fortunate to have people like Aang and James in our business, continuing to make films in this rather dicey world. And I'm thrilled tonight to be part of thanking you and acknowledging you, and what a thrill it was to work with you.
Well, I didn't know at the time what the ice storm was. Comedy, drama, sexual revolution. What was that? I was 15 and angry. And I really didn't care what happened in the 70s, frankly, at the time. And I remember the first, I remember I read the script, and I knew the script was fabulous, but I didn't really quite understand why. But I remember going in for my meeting with Ang and James immediately just melting all of that sort of like angry teen stuff away with a long conversation about Barbie, the movie wherein, the rabbit might exist. He might be a drunk hallucination. And who knew that you would share that? I was 15. You're a professor. And then I have to say, Ang's tolerance of me and this sort of pig pen of sort of 15, angsty adolescent teenage was really something that always has over the years really touched me. Because I know I wasn't always so present or fun to deal with. And I certainly really did not know what was going on in the movie at all. We had that Buddhist ceremony, and then immediately went down and shot a death scene. I was 15, it was my first drama, and there was an actor on the floor next to me barking like a dog. I had no idea what was happening at all. But, having said that, working with Ang and James is one of the things that I am most proud of in my life. And having been a part of one of their amazing films is something I will cherish always. People ask me about the Ice Store and compliment me all the time. They ask me what it was like filming. And I lead out the things about the Buddhist blessings I didn't understand and the barking like a dog and how angry I was, 15, and unattractive and unappealing. But I thank them, and I tell them that it was the wonderful experience that it was, but that really I had absolutely nothing to do with its greatness. I can't even take credit for my own performance because I truly, I cannot emphasize this enough, had no idea what the film was about. I understood that the kids were unhappy. I understood that the adults were being adulterous. And the clothes I thought were hilarious. That was pretty much it. I would say things like, I had a sexual revolution. That was a crazy time. But, didn't know what I was talking about. And Ang in rehearsal, in his graciousness, he gave us kids, the kids that we booklets, packets, homework, if you will, that would have educated us, would have brought us up to speed, would have made me understand what had happened before I was born. But Ang, I didn't do my homework, and I'm going to have to take this opportunity. So I'm taking this opportunity to formally apologize for having not done my homework, and still to this day, I never did my homework. But I also want to thank you, and I want to thank James, just for being so talented, for allowing me to ride on the coattails of your genius, and for being such an amazing director, able to coerce out of me a performance that the adult version of that stubborn, no homework doing 15-year-old will always be proud of and thankful. And I will take the memory of this film and the pride I have that I was part of it to my grave. So thank you very much.
To be brought back to a moment, you make movies here for a few weeks, but you also make a connection with people. Is simply inexplicable to folks who never go through that process because it's not personal in the sense, it's beyond personal. It's something where you see people bring to life a fantasy, an idea of what you could achieve that you could never achieve on your own. You could never really make happen what happens unless you have people like students. And of course, as part of that process, it's absurd almost to be part of and share life which you get to receive this kind of award for simply kind of riding the crest of a wave that sometimes feels almost separate from the lived reality that you share with those that you live with outside of those few special days of the piece. And yet that reality really informs everything, especially the reality I have with my children. And I really accept this medal as a VFS, and I'll explain that in a certain sense, because at a moment like this, you really have the perspective not only of what this institution and what you people as the living embodiments of it bring, but also what your kids at those grim moments when you realize that they actually see who you really are. It's important for me also to note, to kind of reiterate it back at Annette. She's my original boss here in New York City. I got the health insurance. The love and support and understanding of what it means to have that split personality that comes with being a member of a real collegian, a real sense of acceptance at Columbia. And also happens here tonight as a member of the film committee and the National Club, Jordy Trent, who was my co-producer on my very first movie 20 years ago. So it's amazing to see you here looking exactly as you did 20 years ago. Because I don't. By BFS, I really mean precisely something very precise and very specific about this guy. The phrase comes to me from my daughter, who's now 17 and about to embark on a college career next year, who was also with me when Pang and I were in California last year at my alma mater, Berkeley, where we were receiving an honor and doing a lot of work with students. And she got to experience an evening of us together, at the end of which about 400 Asian Americans and maybe 300 Anglos proceeded to swarm Ang Lee in that way that only Robert Pattinson knows at the premieres of his movies. And at the same time as Ang was being swarmed by about 700 people, about 3 people swarmed me. Overwhelming. And since then, all text messages from my daughter have commenced with, BFS, can you pick up some paper from Staples or printer, or BFS, is it okay if I order from Seamless Web from the Indian restaurant tonight before you get home? BFS is, of course, an acronym for a vaguely famous sidekick. And it's in that spirit, which I said was
difficult, actually impossible for me to say anything after those brilliant speeches and letters, and I literally don't know what to say. Annette, thank you for your brilliant introduction. If I can articulate like you do, I don't need James. 80 years ago, he's the first one who talked like that, and I believed him. I stuck with him for the rest of my life. That's the reason I keep making those movies, and that's why I have to make movies about repression. I can't express myself like that. Sigourney and Christina, I'm sorry I had to direct that way. I'm going to change my method since I speak English. In some ways, James is brilliant. He made me kind of what I am today. And speaking of the psychic part, I have to mention because I have some love letter from the actors with sensibility. That was my first English job, and there I felt I was 30 years behind everybody, even a kid, but I had to direct them. So I brought James with me. Nobody knew who he is. Everybody thought he was my entourage or something. I wanted to see an American. brilliant British Greece cast and crew. I didn't really know what to say. I spoke pidgin English. So I got James social with them, talk the way you do. I was telling everybody Ang's like a Zen master. He doesn't say a word, but he's everywhere. He's omnipresent. All now he's swimming them to see my directions. And actually, you guys haven't get the worst. Since it was actually worse. From Kate Winslet. When I first went to Emma Thompson, that was a boring look. That look was boring. That was my English back then. He didn't get the worst, actually. I think Ellen Rickman probably get worse in that movie. I kept coming up to him and said, reduce. Reduce. Got the briefcase. I went up to him, I couldn't repeat anymore. I said, do more. He said, what do you mean? He said, do more. Which way do I go? And I said, I mean, more reduce. After you still finish when I say something, they're used to asshole directors, like really tough, or nice guys, and I'm both. In English, I used to get away with that. I got a little better on you guys. That's why I do a lot of homework, so you'll be busy. And I'm not doing it. I think that the worst I gave to you was, what was that? You are a bitch. A rigid bitch. That's the part you're playing. Something like that. But she leveled with the kids. But I love her for that. Kevin got one of my favorite clients. One day he was talking about this therapy, group therapy. That was kind of embarrassing, but in the 70s you're supposed to be open. So he's forced to be open. He's actually uncomfortable, but he kept doing gestures like that with that turtleneck. It looked really funny. It's not the kind of comedy I was looking for. So I suggested he should fold his arm while he's doing and everything. So I went up to him and said, can you be less Victoria? We used to joke to each other. That was very good, but this is no Victoria. I apologize to my actors. Actually, Jen, my wife, is here. She allowed me to say this in public, and I will say that as many times as I can. I give my best heart to filmmaking. If I can do Sense and Sensibility, I figure with that kind of English, I can do anything with filmmaking. And of which the most private, most secretive section I give it to actors. Actually, you know me better than my wife know me on that front. I feel guilty, but I also feel it's a privilege to devote to movie, particularly actors, because it is through you that we show and tell human stories. And only sharing those stories, we make up meanings of life, and that's what this is all about for me. So I want to thank you, and I want to apologize to you. My English gets better. I want to apologize to you, and I love you. And thank you, and thank you, and thank you. Just getting a little more comfortable here. And relax as you. It feels a great honor here to be in this beautiful room. Very special to receive this award that has to go to, as I understand, to Marcus Stacy, Spike Lee, Handles, great filmmakers. And most of all, I'm really happy to receive this award together with James Schamus, because in my mind, I feel National Arts Club celebrates and honors the most important ingredient element in filmmaking, which is collaboration. I want to thank you. I first met James January 1991, and I was pretty stressed out. I was desperate making a movie after 6 years of frustration. And I got a little bit money from Taiwanese government. There's a representative here. Thank you. With a friend of ours, I came to James, and actually I was there to see Ted Ho. They just formed their company, Blue Machine. I went to a Tribeca building. Second floor, they had 2 tables way back of the house. We were all very young. I pitched them a story, and they told me they were the king of no-budget filmmaking. I feel very vulnerable that time, because I put my hands into a total stranger. I just hope they're not crooked. But over the years, we started with pushing hands with each other. In New York City, we went to modern-day Taiwan, we went to ancient China, we went to 70s Connecticut, we went to Civil War, American, Western, and eventually we went to go to Woodstock, and that was quite a trip. James and I not only collaborate, but we grew up together. He's such a brilliant man. I don't know what to do without him. Everything that I don't have, he has. So we will grow up together. After Jan, my wife, without whom I probably get a real job a very long time ago. After Jan, it was James who enabled me to be the filmmaker I really want to be. But James is not the only one. Sorry, James. There's only one. In Chinese fortune telling, it is said that nothing will really happen until all the proper elements come together in a very special time. So I think it's very true that we're all incomplete. It is very true that we cannot get by without inspiration and the support of other people. So other than James, I want to thank everybody who collaborated and the colleague that make those films. And tonight, you celebrate James and myself. I want to thank you, and I want to take the opportunity to celebrate those people who make those films you love. Thank you so much.
I'm with my good friend, old friend, Franny Carpenter. Hi, how are you?
Hi, Paul. This is like a miracle.
It is a miracle.
God sent you to me tonight.
So Franny is sitting sort of like night behind me, and all of a sudden we started talking and realized that we're in love.
Right, and I said, this man has such great energy, and he's funny, and he's so charming, and it was like, Paul, you walked back into my life.
And who knew that? We knew each other for 20 years.
How funny is that? 20 years is
yeah. So we're like, we're family through a first cousin of yours?
Yes, my first cousin.
Anthony Mans.
Anthony Mans.
All right.
A great human being, a great individual. And so Paul and I connected like 20 some odd years ago, and then it's been, there's been this lull, and now we're connecting again. It's like most marriages, actually.
And we're both at this Angly event at the National Arts Club, and you're with a very popular magazine.
Yeah, now at the website with Parade.com, and I mean, Paul and I, we're here with like the beautiful people. We're here with the A-list, Sigourney Weaver, Ang Lee.
We interviewed them.
James Schamus. This is the A-list, Christina Ricci. They're not having as much fun as we are.
Well, I don't know.
They're not right now. I'm watching them. They're eating rolls, no butter. I'm watching them. I've observed them.
Of course you got a butter. What's a roll without butter?
Yeah.
Not a bad little olive oil on a roll.
Good.
That's a good thing.
Works for me.
So now, tell us how Parade is such a success.
It is because it tells good stories. It tells uplifting, positive stories. That's
so, we've interviewed you. Actually, we've interviewed Franny professionally through tours on our Good News broadcast, because you do have that kind of content, right? I think that's sort of has been inherited. Parade's been around for a long time, though. Isn't it one of the most read supplements of newspapers?
Oh, absolutely.
Over the years?
Yeah, like some 74 million readers every week. The website's different, though. We have a couple of million. We're doing really well. and we try to, kind of pick up what the magazine's doing and enhance it.
Okay. How did you get to become, and you've been, I believe, you were an editor with Parade, right?
Many years.
What does an editor do?
And it's interesting because you never meet a kid who says, when I grow up, I want to be an editor, right? Like, what do they do? You work with authors, you come up with ideas, you kind of figure out who's the best writer to write this idea, or if the piece is in front of you, you have a dialogue with the writer. Because, really, like most things in life, two heads are always better than one. And what your job essentially is to get the best work out of that talent.
What do you think about children?
I think they're the only miracle worth talking about in the world. I don't think going to the moon is a miracle. Curing disease, necessary but not a miracle. I think children are a miracle.
You're waiting to see Woodstock, taking Woodstock,
yes,
because
I'm waiting.
You can go and then see it with your son, right?
Yes, because he really wanted to see it. He's a big Dimitri Martin fan. And we sort of then missed the window, He was away at summer camp, came back, we had a lot of catching up to do, and we just never saw it. I'm dying for the DVD.